Alright folks, so the gaming streets is admittedly dry and I am admittedly hungry, but I wanted to talk about the subject of revisiting topics and maybe having more of this optimistic mindset, more free thinking on the topic at hand. And one of the videos I made was, I think a few years ago, I talked about how all Superman games suck. Now there is some degree of truth to that. I mean, I think Superman 64 and other Superman games did not get to the height of popularity as Batman Arkham, as Spider-Man PS4. I think we haven't had a Superman game reach that level of notoriety in terms of being positively received and selling well. As I said in that very video, you could do so many ideas with Superman. You could put him in a fighting game, you could put him in a beat 'em up, and maybe he could, succeed there. But I did say he has developmental hurdles behind him, like being too overpowered. This guy can bench press planets. He can fucking bench press planets like no tomorrow. And due to the OP nature, how do you develop enemies around Superman? Obviously, he blows regular enemies away if they aren't infused with magic, and kryptonite his only two weaknesses. So I said it would be impossible until today. So I saw these two indie developers, they created this game called Undefeated, and it's coming out sometime in August on Steam, August the 2nd, 2019, and it looks exactly like what I would love and expect to see in a Superman title. You have the main character flying around and saving people at a breakneck speed. It runs at a smooth frame rate from what I see. It is free to play. I don't think that a Superman game would be free to play, but beggars can't be choosers. They are doing an indie title. It's only 3 people, so yeah. I do think that the gameplay is also reminiscent of what I would like to see, just very fast flying and beat 'em up nature as you're fighting like sub bosses and mini bosses trying to take them down. And I really like that basic concept, that basic fundamental. I think going back on that video that I made, I think you can make a Superman title, but it's just really fucking hard. But that's really the thrill about it, the thrill of overcoming adversity, because we never seen a AAA developer put Superman on a pedestal like Batman Arkham or to the level of Spider-Man PS4, because there are those developmental hurdles against them. Like I saw in my Discord, someone said if you put a health bar on Superman, then you automatically failed because Joe Blow isn't going to be Superman. So here's the thing, I think the only way to create a Superman game is to create a boss rush experience where bosses show up, the city's in peril, and you have to do whatever it takes to defeat them, whether it's by using the signature Superman powers, super strength, super speed, freeze breath, the I-beam laser thing that he does, fighting all these enemies, whether either on Earth or in space. That would be cool if they had this whole transition dynamic of fighting from the ground to space, then back again, just tearing through shit, fighting through satellites. Like Superman fights, they always cause a lot of collateral damage, even though to quite the contrary, a lot of people are saying, oh shit, Man of Steel, he destroyed half of the entire town. It would be reminiscent of like a Dragon Ball sort of beat 'em up, where you're just doing all these crazy moves and shit, and you're trying to stop them from beating you, obviously, because there are bosses and enemies in the Superman books that have kicked his ass before. I mean, Doomsday fucking wrecked Superman shit and stopped his heart for like a short period of time. In some of the Justice League TV shows and in some of the Superman episodes for the animated series, Darkseid was kicking Superman's ass as well. So I think it should be tailored to a boss rush where Superman's most powerful enemies, they come out to fight and you fight them and you have these cool dynamic battles. Maybe put a little bit of story behind them, a little bit of mystery and intrigue, because Clark Kent himself is a reporter and sometimes Lois is in danger, sometimes the city is in danger. I said, and before in the video, I said that the town having a health bar is kind of stupid because, you gotta go around, save all these people, manage this, and then the town has a health bar, and if you don't do all these remedial tasks, then it's game over. But they could find a way to personalize it into the story and make it a lot more interesting with the stakes involved and seeing what you have to do in certain missions to make it all more interesting. I mean, when Mary Jane was kind of in danger in Spider-Man PS4 during the Grand Central Station segment, and you have the stealth side and you have Spider-Man getting call outs and taking out enemies, that was pretty entertaining once you got both characters mixed into the experience and you saw the nature of the danger behind that. Mary Jane could get spotted, Mary Jane could get shot, maybe the bomb that was set by the demons could go off if you didn't disarm it fast enough. So you could always put some personal stakes into the story and make it all worth interesting to see this superpowered hero have these vulnerabilities due to the people around him who don't have the same powers. I think they could do something interesting with that. What else did I say? I think I did say that it was stupid if regular Joe Smo grunts with, handguns, 9mm, pineapples, 5.56ers, grenades. I did say those enemies that are run-of-the-mill street criminals defeating Superman made no sense from a gameplay perspective. Not all of these people, I assume, have access to kryptonite, so it would be super stupid if every enemy had that shit and they showed up. Obviously, people with magic and kryptonite abilities, or if they have access to the rock, it would hurt you as a character, but not everyone does it. So I think excluding the premise of regular enemies in a Superman game would be cool for like a boss rush only scenario. I keep talking to people about this. The main highlight with the Souls games is the bosses, not the regular enemies that you fight. They are a little bit of a hurdle, surely, but they aren't a hurdle to Superman in that regard. So you just go straight to the meat of the experience, which is the bosses, and I think that could be pulled off. I did talk about the remedial tasks. What else did I say? I think just in general, like some of the stuff they have been doing with beat 'em ups and Dragon Ball titles and making everything fast and furious would work for a game of this nature. Basically don't repeat any of the mistakes from Superman 64, which is flying through rings. Actually have objectives to do. I can see Supes actually going around and saving some people in danger because that's core Superman. He is the boy blue. He is the man of tomorrow. He thinks about human life first before its own. They could mimic some great arcs like Death of Superman. Maybe they could do Man of Tomorrow, early years. Maybe they could do alternate takes like Superman Red Sun. There's always so much story potential to tap from because while he's not as popular as Batman, he does have a diverse lore in mind that you could use and interweave into certain segments. Again, I also think that like just the nature of power fantasy and going around and just being, it's something that Prototype did. Like no one complained when you were super OP in Prototype. You had tentacles that could pierce a city block and kill like 30 people in the process. We know that, yes, Superman, well, in some iterations and some alternate universes, he does go completely berserk, but in that regard, you are good in this front. Maybe they could do a multiverse storyline where you could play with like evil Superman or something. You never know. They could do something interesting with that. But just the idea of being super overpowered in power fantasy, we can't really complain about that because it's something that people want to see in superhero games. We want to see the full core abilities of this superhero being used, whether he can survive in space, whether he can lift these big objects and maybe get into a fight and throw them around, that is core Superman, power fantasy, feeling like this character is larger than life and in control, and they have all these incredible abilities, but there are vulnerabilities that need to go with that to make it more believable, in a sense, to make the consequences seem high. So a developer can do a Superman title. It's just really fucking hard. I think you need to exclude the regular enemies. As a recap, exclude the regular enemies, go for boss rush, make the battles bigger and awesome and better than ever with a lot of Superman's rogues gallery. Exclude all that stupid shit where you have to fly through rings and all this shit. Exclude that every enemy in the building has kryptonite and magic, because that doesn't make sense. Maybe you want to wallop a thug for a little bit. I don't even think you can do that, because fucking you would just splatter the guy and murder him. All Superman has to do is like do a little flick and the guy's head can come off. So maybe that's not good enough. Maybe just the regular routine robbery quests, they have to go. I think Rocksteady's premise of molding a Batman game to be like the Batman, while the Batman has those vulnerabilities like being shot, I think they embody that well. They integrated the detective stuff. So with Superman, you have to think big. As I said earlier, you have to think larger than life. You have to think large scale. So maybe him taking out like these big giant alien invaders, like think of Man of Steel Zod when he was cultivating the earth, and you're fighting like this giant cultivator machine, and it's a big ass fucking fight. Like I think one of the things that I have in mind is like Metal Gear. So you see how the Metal Gears are intricately made as bosses. That could come into the equation, you know. There are things that Superman doesn't do, like kill people, you know, just the regular Superman. I'm not talking about like multiverse stuff, but I did bring that up as like a cool idea. Maybe you could play as like evil supes, whatever. But the general principle is you're not going to be splattering civilians. You're not going to be flying through buildings with reckless abandon, even though there should be environmental damage, because it's not realistic if it's not. There's just things that are going to be seen as boundaries, which cannot be avoided. And even though it's a big power fantasy trip, is something to take into account. You don't want those restrictions to bog down the game too much. I mean, you can have the Man of Steel go through some buildings if a villain like knocks him around a little bit or something, but you're not going to be like going around and crushing people's head like a sandwich. I mean, come on, that's a little bit too much. So I wouldn't put any big restrictions on people, other than the fact that you're not going to be barreling through buildings through your own volition, and you're not going to be obviously smashing people into bits if they aren't at least the bad guys, you know, the people that are overpowered. Civilians, you won't do that to. I guess there could be differing animations in that regard, like when Superman attacks a random human criminal versus like an alien or something, the animations change. He's not going to splatter the criminal guy. He's going to detain him, put him in jail. There, your day is done. The alien, on the other hand, is a bigger threat. You're going to want to pummel that thing like no tomorrow. Obviously not kill it, but you're going to want to beat the shit out of it if it has like some imminent powers, if it is an imminent danger to everyone. So you're going to want Doomsday out of the way immediately if he's killing like fucking 50 civilians, and you got to deal with that immediately. I think it's also disappointing that Rocksteady did not take on the mantle of doing Superman. They claimed that they are working on another project that is a games for service, so you know how that might go under the umbrella of WB Games, and Warner Brother Games is literally the worst publisher of all time, in my opinion, second to EA, with how they handle and coordinate micros or stupid DLC practices. So I'm not really excited for the project as I would be with just a Superman confirmation in their hands. They did well by Batman. I would like to see them do well with Superman despite all those adversities. I would imagine also maybe a group setting could also help flesh out the idea that you could use Superman. I mean, I want to go and play this game called X-Men Legends, and I would assume maybe this like X-Men Legends DC universe hybrid of just going around and beating stuff up. That could be fun for a few minutes, like someone like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, like you're just going around and fucking shit up with all the characters in the DC universe. That would be a fun little game to play if you could exchange between like Green Lantern, Superman, Batman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, all these characters. Hawk Girl, it's Superboy, Teen Titans. You know, it's something that they could put on the cards in the future if they wanted to do it. I think that would be more interesting than not doing a DC property, since Warner Brothers is so tight knit with them because they fund them essentially. So there's many ideas that you could take with the Man of Steel. But what I would want to see is how would a AAA developer overcome his OP nature in order to make the game still feel super dramatic. I think the main sort of hurdle to get over is people questioning the fact of challenge and wondering, since Superman is so OP, can he really die? Can he really be defeated? And the answer is yes. Superman has died in other Elseworld stories. Superman has been weakened and killed. Superman has been defeated before. So I think that idea of creating challenge for extremely strong metahumans to come in and actually defeat Superman, actually beat him, actually pose a challenge to the player, that's still there. That should not go away because we have these principles, we have these notions that Superman cannot get a game over because, like I said, he has been defeated before by Doomsday. He has failed before, and the entire planet got atomized because the Flash couldn't save that timeline. I mean, Aquaman had contingency plans and things happened and everything fucking blew up, and Superman was sad and he basically flew off into the sunset while the entire Earth got atomized. So it's like, it's crazy. It's like there are ways to still make game overs entertaining, interesting, and to fall in with lore over just having a character fall over and die. I'm gonna miss those Arkham screens of Batman getting his back broken by Bane. That's not gonna happen to Superman, but who knows, maybe Darkseid will make Kal-El bow to the true leader of Apocalypse, the true ruler of Apocalypse. You never know. I wouldn't mind a cool game over screen like that. That would be awesome. And like I said, while it might be hard, they can at least make it challenging through these boss fights. I mean, Fury was great. I played it. It was amazing. And I still felt challenged even though I had these giant battle arenas to deal with. But I do think that one thing they should do for a Superman title is they need to create the sense of flying. They need to create that open environment because that feels like core Superman. Flying around, just getting a sense of verticality. That shit really feels amazing to me, and they need to perfect that at least alongside the fast and frenetic combat. Obviously I don't want to see any, God of War depowering. Oh, we gotta take his powers away again and again and again, because it wouldn't feel like a Superman game if they did take your powers away every 6 seconds and you can't do shit. That wouldn't be fun. It still has to have that power fantasy nature, but having those personal stakes, that would be just really hard to do, to find like that middle ground of, yeah, there's danger within the gameplay, but then you do have all your powers intact. And I think that's probably why a lot of people did not pursue the Superman route with making a game of this nature, because all of the stuff, even the objectives, they would have to be interesting to some capacity instead of depowering the character 100% of the time, So yeah, I think that's my opinions on revisiting the idea of, can a Superman game not suck for once if it was in the hands of a AAA developer? I think they have the potential to make a game that can sit on that throne of quality if they decided to make it. I heard that the Superman PS1 beta was actually better than the N64 title. So if you haven't played that, I'm pretty sure there's gameplay of it out there somewhere, and it just depends on what they do with it, what the core gameplay will be, if it's fun, if it embarks on that power fantasy romp and make it a boss rush. I just can't imagine like all the physics going into like a Superman title, like all the buildings, you go through buildings and shit and stuff crumbles. I would imagine the destructible elements would be absolutely insane, god tier. You would have to have some collateral damage involved with these large scale fights, and it will really need to show like picking up giant fucking pipes and lobbing trees at people. Just the possibilities are endless, you know. So that is my opinion on revisiting the idea of Superman games. Can it be done? Yeah. Is it really fucking hard? Yes. Would you have a uphill battle of making it super believable? Fuck yes. Is there power fantasy games out there that exist that absolutely whet my appetite? Absolutely. Prototype was fantastic. It just depends on what they would do that would fit the context of Superman more, and if they can make it fun. That's the main question that a lot of people would ask. So if you did like this off the cuff discussion, remember, comment, share, like the video. Again, you know, a little bit low energy here today, but I am tired right now, so I'm gonna play me some of that Gears beta, and I will talk to you guys soon. What do you think about the possibilities of if a AAA developer made like a Superman title? Would you like it? Would you hate it? Would you think is impossible? Sound off in the comments below and let me know, and I will see you guys next time. Later.